screen is frozen. All right, everybody, we're here on the Maximum Overdrive. We're going to talk a little bit about what should black men build. We're going to get into that. I got a good idea of what we should start building on right now. We'll hear it here on the Overdrive up next. Dame, hit it. All right, everybody, welcome to the Maximum Overdrive, my flagship show, the very show that launched my entire channel. I am working on two more channels. The Power Network will be coming up sometime towards the end of the year. We got something different we'll be doing on that channel. So stay tuned and keep your ear out for when we let you know when that channel will be operational. We're doing some big things on that channel. We're putting some things together. It's going to be different from the channel here, the Ebony Star Network. So we're very excited about that project. But anyway, welcome to the O Drive in our What Should Black Men Build series. Now we are into the volume 3 of the series, What Should Black Men Build? Well, youth centers, recreation centers. You know, back in the day when I was growing up as a kid, we always had something to do. There was a lot of things that kept our minds off the street. We had recreation centers that we can go to. We had swimming pools. One of the famous public swimming pools in Jersey City was called Municipal. And we all used to go down to Municipal, swim. It was a great place to meet new friends, great place to meet girls, you know. And we also had youth recreation centers. We would go there for free. They didn't cost anything. You went inside, they had games in there. They had, you could play basketball inside. You can play air hockey. You could play um, handball. You can play. There was just a whole host of games you can play. And of course, there were a lot of girls there too, you know, and it was a place where as a child you hung out and it had security. It was a secure place. So you didn't have riffraffs in there. And it was watched by adults who would take their time out to run the place. We played volleyball in there. We played dodgeball in there. There was a lot of things that we did in these recreation centers. We played bumper pool. We played pool. We played tennis. You can build things in there. We didn't have computers back then. Well, you know, computers probably existed, but they didn't exist the way they are now. Like you know, there wasn't a computer in every home. Wasn't nobody walking around with laptops and stuff like that. So, um, in these community centers, these recreational centers, it kept us occupied, and there was things you can do. You could sing. You could learn how to do things. You can learn how to sew, cook. They had so many things depending on what recreation center you went to, because we had more than one in the city of Jersey City. I think there was like 4 or 5, plus the 2 public pools, like Municipal. We also had skating rings, like outer skates. So there was a lot of things for us to do as youth to keep us off the school. I'm sorry, keep us off the street. Now the problem with these recreation centers is that they was built by the state or built by the city. So when white supremacy came in and wanted to really put a stranglehold on the black community, they shut down those centers. And all of a sudden there was no place for the kids to go, but to hang on the street and be in each other's face all the time and get into nothing but mischief. So what I suggest, what we should do as black men, we need to bring back the youth center. And I mean a youth center that we own and control, not one that's built by the state, not one that's built by the city, so they can turn the faucet off whenever they feel like it. We need to purchase a property, commandeer a property wherever it's going to be, whether it's an old housing project, an old storefront. It's not so much as how big the center is, opposed to the content inside the center. It's the content that's really important. Oh, and security is very important too. So we need to go back. In order for us to go forward as black people, we need to go back into the past, not the far past, not back to slavery, but back to the 60s and 70s, because black people had a infrastructure mindset back then. They were about building, they were about putting things together. So the problem with us was we relied too much on the government. And so when they were ready to pull the plug on a lot of projects, that hurt the black community because we were depending on those projects, those after school programs, those recreational centers, because those recreational centers worked. I used to be in them places all the time. It was like a hangout for kids. Nobody was fighting. I mean, when depending on what game we was playing, there may be a little bit of rumble tumbling going on, some pushing and shoving because we're very competitive. But it wasn't some all out, get your knife out, get your blade out and cut somebody's throat type stuff. It was all in being competitive with each other, depending on what games we were playing. So youth centers is something that we have to get back to. Now, we build this youth center. Now, building a youth center is not that hard. All right. It's not something that we have to get into an all out conversation about and talk ourselves out of it, which is what a lot of you Negroes are probably going to do because a lot of you are afraid to do anything. You're scared to death to make a move because you're so afraid of the white man. And so you'll probably get in here and have some drawn out, lengthy discussion about nothing to the point of exhaustion. And then you end up not doing anything. We don't need all of that. We don't need all your fancy talk. We don't need all your fancy research. We don't need any of that. I hear you guys talk all the time about how much research you do. So what? How much work are you doing in the community? What are you doing that counts? Just because you research some terms or some information and you bring your behind up on social media and you regurgitate that research doesn't mean that you're doing a damn thing for your people. So you guys got a big problem between reality and make-believe. So you running your mouth on YouTube don't mean a hill of beans. It's what you're doing that counts in real time. Now here I'm talking about stuff that we can do in real time. I'm not interested in having lengthy discussions to make someone sound smart. What I'm interested in is brothers getting together as black men and doing something to turn around the plight of our community and turning around the broken mentality of our young boys and girls, which is our fault because we allowed our community to lay in ruins. And once the community is ruined, right, corruption grows, and corruption breeds bad behavior. So we need some brothers to come in here and talk about getting some plans together, some old apartment building in the hood, some old store that we can get together, get our two belts together, put a little money into, renovate, and start putting things in there that will captivate the minds of our children and keep them off the street. We have to get our kids off the street. The fact that they're on the street, running around, selling drugs, getting into all kinds of things is really, really hurting us because now they're turning into animals. They're attacking women. They're attacking children. The streets wasn't that bad when I was growing up because there wasn't a lot of kids on the street back then. Remember, like I said, a lot of us were in the recreational centers. Those recreational centers work. We need youth centers for our kids so we can teach them. See, a youth center is another place where you can educate your children. We can hire some of the people in the community who are very good at academics, pay them a salary to work in the community centers or the youth centers that we built and teach our kids. We also went there to do homework. There was tutors there There was a lot going on in these community centers when I was growing up. You can go there and get tutored in math. You can go there and get tutored in English. There was a lot going on. And these centers really worked. Again, when they put the stranglehold on the African American community, they got rid of these centers. And at the same time, they took all of the vocation out of the grade schools. Vocation used to be in the schools, people. Vocation wasn't separate on its own like it is now. It used to be a part of grade school and high school. You know, you learn home economics and things in grade school. And when you got to high school, you started learning how to build cars. You learned carpentry. Well, actually, you learned carpentry in grade school. You know, you added to it once you got into high school. So schools used to be more equipped with vocation. They got rid of that too. You see, the whole point of white supremacy is to strip black people of the ability to be self-efficient and to be able to teach our children skills so that they can thrive out here and they can build like other races of kids are doing. These other races of men, they teach their kids vocation. They teach their kids how to take over businesses. They teach their kids how to build businesses. They teach their kids how to work on cars, build houses. This is why you have so many Mexicans that can build homes. They can do roofs. They can do brick masonry. Where do you think they got all that from? They learned that from their fathers. Okay. And so when it comes down to black men, we're not passing anything on to our children. We're not passing anything on to our boys. Our boys can't do these things. Our boys can't compete with these foreign boys because black fathers aren't passing these skills down to their boys. And so we need to do something to get them off the street. Now, a youth center isn't a huge project. Now, it can turn into a huge project once you get it started. You can add to it. But you have to get it started first. Like I said, it's not a hard thing to get started if you got a group of people that's willing to put forth the effort. You know, and we don't have to make it complicated. Like a lot of you guys, I noticed a lot of you brothers who don't want to do anything, who don't want to be held accountable for anything, you create impossible scenarios so you can thwart the conversation and pretty much effectively phase yourself out, right? So you don't have to be accountable for doing anything in the community. We're not going to get into an impossible discussion and create impossible tasks. Like, we're not going to come in here and say, well, to build a youth center, we have to first take over the military. We got to take over the police department. We got to take over the medical industry. And once we've taken over those three things, then we come and try to build a youth center. Now, we're not going to talk about stuff like that. We're not going to invoke impossibilities to discourage the conversation. What we want to do is have an honest discussion about building a youth center because youth centers are very important. I'm telling you, they worked. Youth centers work. If they didn't, the city or the state would have never pulled the plug on them. They kept kids off the street. They kept kids interested in learning. They kept kids' minds occupied on positive things. So they weren't in the street shooting each other, beating each other up, chasing each other home, jumping each other. If you look at the culture, this violent culture that developed in our community, it wasn't like that at first. The further you go back, the less violence you see in the black communities. I'm serious. You trace our culture all the way back to slavery, you find less and less violence to the point where There was no violence in the black community. The only violence that was in our lives, our ancestors' lives, was slavery. Our communities wasn't riddled with violence. Okay, a lot of this stuff was learned during slavery. And when you have sellouts who want to act like white people, they brought a lot of that European violent and vicious mentality into our community. You know, beating on your wife, abusing your children, disrespecting each other, putting each other down, devaluing the lives of one or the other. That's a savage and that's a savage European mentality. That's not an African mentality. That's not a black mentality. That's a learned mentality from somewhere else. And that behavior goes with that mentality. You understand? So we had things in place, whether it be in the home, and even we even had safeguards outside the home. You know, the kids had places to go. And so when this decree came down to flood the communities with drugs and all of that, they systematically took everything out of the black community that could benefit black people. They even shut down the industry because black people was excelling in the industry. You know, the industry. Industrialized jobs were all in the black community. Black people worked in factories morning and night. They were machine operators in plants like Rubbermaid. And they made good money. Back then, the average black man could raise his entire family off of a salary he made from a factory. So these youth centers, they are the key. We need to bring them back because we have too many. What's happening with our young kids now? What has taken the place of youth centers, right, and has taken the place of recreation centers is poisonous music with demons like Takashi 6ix9ine, Lil Wayne, Future, Cuddy Boy, all these freaks who are confusing the minds of our kids, who are poisoning the minds of our kids. This is what they listen to all day long. And this is what gets into their mind. You got some freak walking around with a head full of rainbow colored hair, spewing demonic BS. You got one dude, Lil Wayne, walking around who's transforming into a giant bat right in front of everybody's eyes, and nobody's even paying any attention to that. You got the Future. You got Lil Nas X. These men are gay. They spew all kinds of things that confuse our kids about their gender. See, we didn't have any of this stuff going on back in the day. We had wholesome places for our kids to go. We didn't have any place where the kids went and they were taught to be confused about their own gender, to question their own gender. And when you listen to this crap that these people are talking about, none of this stuff makes any goddamn sense. It's like we're being played for fools. They're insulting our intelligence. They're playing us for fools. You got a man who walks around calling himself a female. And then they shoot you a line of bullshit. And they're always talking to the women because the women are more susceptible to this than men are. And they feed you a line of bullshit. It make you think that they're like you and they're not. And before you know it, you're calling them girls, you're calling them girlfriend, you know. I was watching a podcast the other day that had one of these trans men on it or whatever they're supposed to be called. So they were talking about, yeah, you know, we're not women, but we show up as women. That's the craziest thing ever. I mean, you know what? We supposed to accept that? That's supposed to be some kind of justification for you mocking women. And so these are the dangers of not having our the minds of our children occupied with positive things, things that can help them grow, things that can help them become better people and better members to their own society. Damon, you still there? Hold on one second, y'all.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Take over for a few minutes. I gotta be start my. I'm frozen. I'll be right back.
All right. Okay. Yeah, they are mocking us. Yeah, they're not women, but they show up as women. Excuse me, we don't need you to show up as women. You can't be women. You are not women, and it's creating confusion among the children. Yeah, just because you're confused don't mean you gotta confuse everybody else. And yes, we unintentionally uh well give them credibility by calling them girlfriend. You know, yeah, I've been guilty of that myself at one point or another. Until it came down to a fight, and I had to tell them, look, you're not a woman. You're never gonna be a woman. I don't care if you feel like you think you're a woman. That's just it. You can't be a woman because you never know what it's like to be and think like a woman. Because hey, you've been born a male. You've been born a man. All you can do
Okay,
is
I'm back.
and imitate.
Okay, I'm back. Can you hear
Uh,
me?
yeah, I can hear you.
You okay?
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So, like I was saying, so we have these things now to where our kids have no defense. You know, hip hop is destroying the minds of our children. It's corroding the minds of our children like rust. And we have to do something about it. And one of the ways that we can combat and fight against this is building a youth center and putting things in that youth center that's positive, that's wholesome, that can occupy the minds of our children and help them grow, help them become good members of Black society, contributors to Black society in a positive way. Like right now, we have a lot of our young children, our boys and girls, contributing to the death count of Black people. They're putting each other in cemeteries. They're competing with each other on who has a larger body count of people that look just like them. And this comes out of the cesspool of music. They've destroyed our music. Our music is no longer the Black music today should not even be accepted in Black households. It's not fit for the ears of our youth. Our music today is completely corrupted and controlled by foreign intervention who do not have the best interests of our children or our people at heart, and they seek to destroy the minds of our children. This is why the homosexual community goes after young people. Look at most of the people who are confused. They're young. A lot of these transgenders or whatever they're supposed to be are young men, completely confused, mind completely blown. And you can't tell them that they're not sick. You can't tell them that there's something wrong with their mind. They've been totally brainwashed. And there's nothing you can tell them. You can sit there and try to point it out to them all day long. They just can't hear. You'll never get through. You'll never get through. There's nothing you can do. They've done an irreversible job on a lot of our youth. There's just no bringing them back. And this is the damage that's being done to our youth. Understand something. Our youth are our future. We're sitting back and we're looking at our youth completely go crazy, and we're talking about it as if they're not a part of us. I hear conversations like, yeah, man, they this and they that. They are us. They are the future us. We should be concerned with that, but I don't hear much concern. I hear black folks talking like these are some whole different people that aren't attached to us, that don't come out of our households. They are the future of black people that we're looking at. And for some reason, we don't seem to get that. And when you got monsters like Takashi 69 and Lil Wayne and Future and Lil Nas X, people who are blatant devil worshippers. This is what our kids are listening to. And this is what's captivating their mind. It's no wonder that they're running around here blowing the hell out of each other, killing each other. Look at the influence of music. Like I said, R&B and hip hop today should be jettisoned out of every black household. The music today that's made by black people is no good. This isn't music. This is demonic energy. This is demonic chanting. They don't talk about nothing wholesome anymore. All they talk about is fucking. And I'm talking about in the most disgusting and raunchy way because they are animals. They don't care anything. Animals don't care nothing about what they hump. They don't care. They just want to hump, right? And so the music today reflects animals who just want to hump. That's all it reflects. Listen to the lyrics. The lyrics aren't about love. They aren't about. Why do you listen? This is one of the reasons why when you come here, I play a lot of old school music. I play a lot of old school music because the old school was what music used to sound like before it became corrupted. I play a lot of old songs where black men were in love with black women and black women were in love with black men. So you can see what our music used to sound like and why the generation who grew up on that aren't fucking crazy versus the generation now. Every fucking where you turn, right? The music is raunchy and disgusting. It reflects animals who just want to hump. And I'm talking about hump anything that makes them feel good. And on top of that, they are removing traditional and natural lines. They are removing the lines that separates a man from a female. They're removing traditional lines. And people would be hard pressed to tell me what does it benefit us to be homosexual? What's the great contribution that being a homosexual brings to black society? Nothing. What it brings is disgusting and twisted and perverted sex. It doesn't bring love. Don't tell me no shit about, oh, it's love. Love my ass. It's about disgusting, twisted, perverted sex. That's all it's about. And what it's going to bring to your children is confusion and mental poison and disgusting, perverted behavior. That's what it's going to do. And we're being bullied into speaking our minds about it, right? We're being bullied like we can't say certain things, or we're homophobic, or we're transphobic, or we're this and man, look, excuse me. You want to save your children, or you want to be a scaredy cat all your life? Because I'm going to tell you right now, the world doesn't give a damn about you being scared. It's going to go on whether you're scared or not. So this movement against our children is going to continue whether you hide under the bed or not. So you may as well not hide under the bed. You may as well fight back, because it's going to continue whether you go run and hide in the closet or not. And so these youth centers are very important. We have to combat what's going on with our children. So what should black men build? Volume 3, youth centers. Now, how do we go about doing that? Well, let's look in the community for property. Even if we have to rent a storefront temporarily until we can gain enough money to purchase it outright, we can start there and put things in that building that are good and positive and promote healthy thinking and healthy behavior. You see, the community centers promoted healthy camaraderie. You know, you played with other kids, you got to know other kids. They had adults there in supervision. If kids got into a jostling match, the adults would come in, teach the kids how to get along. We played together. We made friends. We learned how to live with each other and not kill each other. Youth centers, recreation centers were extremely important. You have no idea how much that hurt the black community when they shut down those youth centers and those community centers. Now, some people say you got youth centers going on now, but you see, they're not the same because they're sanctioned and controlled by the state. So they put what they wanted in. You can't listen. We got to stop relying on things that are controlled by white people. White people care about themselves as well as they should. I'm not saying that they're wrong for caring about themselves, but we have to stop feeling wrong for caring about ourselves and our own children. We have to stop feeling like, you know, it's a shame or it's shameful to care about ourselves, to speak up for ourselves, to stand up for ourselves, to fight for our children, to create things for our children and our children only. You think the Asian man gives a damn about what you think about what he creates for his kids? He don't give a shit about what you think. He's going to create something for his kids, and he could care less about what anybody thinks. The white man's going to create stuff for his kids. He don't give a shit about what you think. The Spanish man is going to create stuff for his kids, and he don't give a shit about what you think. Why we can't adopt the same mentality and create something for our children and not give a damn about what anybody else thinks? Why, when it comes to us and we need to take control of the lives of our youth, we got to worry about what the fuck everybody else thinks? And on top of that, you got these house Negroes, these coons who are coming in, working for white supremacy, telling you, well, you can't start no youth center because the white man ain't gonna let you do it, and society ain't gonna let you do it, and the policies, man, I don't want to hear none of that. We're not the only minority in this country. Other minorities don't give a shit about policy or whatever. They do what they're going to do for themselves. If they run into a loophole, they'll just deal with it. But they're not afraid to do what they're going to do for themselves and their children. They'll do that first, And if the white man got something to say about it, if he wants to step them about it, then they'll deal with that when that happens. But it's not going to stop them from doing something first. Black people, right, lose the game before they even play the game because we got too many talking heads. We got too many scared ass black people running rhetoric on other black people to the point where we get discouraged and hell, we're defeated before we even get into the goddamn game. So we don't never build, we don't do nothing. We don't do anything. And that's our problem. We talk too much for the wrong reasons. Too many individuals who want to sound smart, but don't want to put any hustle behind the. I'm sorry, any muscle behind the hustle. Most of these people on here who run and tell you they talk a good game, but there's nothing going on in real life. Nothing. They're not hitting where it matters. They're not hitting on anything where it matters. In the meantime, our kids are suffering. Like I said, we need youth centers. We need our own youth centers, something that's not sanctioned or controlled by the state or the city. Black people need to start building black youth centers that's governed by us, not by white people, but by black people, governed with our way of life, our culture. We need to be in there teaching our children. We need to be in there controlling the behavior of our children. We don't leave the behavior of our children up to whites or Spanish people or Asians. We shouldn't have to send our kids to foreign people to become educated. We should have the ability to educate our own children into adulthood, to the university level and beyond. Asians can educate their own children. They don't need any foreign intervention when it comes down to academics. They send their kids abroad to learn different things. But in China, they can educate their own kids. Spanish people can educate their own kids. Africans can educate their own kids. Black people in America can't educate their own kids. And that's what has to change. We have to be able to educate our own children and not rely on European universities. You can educate your child past a university level. I've already seen it done. There's little girls and boys out there who've been homeschooled by their black parents, right? And have already graduated major 4-year universities at the age of 14 and 16. So your child can be educated even beyond university levels. So we have to educate our own children. The education of our children is our responsibility. It's nobody else's responsibility that your child isn't educated. That's your responsibility as black people. The Asian man doesn't come and blame you when his child doesn't get educated because he knows that that's his responsibility. The Spanish man doesn't come and blame you when his child is not educated. He knows that that's his responsibility. Black people have to stop relying on other people to educate our children. You have to understand that you're in a society that is dead set against you. Other people do not want to educate our children. They don't want us educated. They don't have the interest of our children at heart. Sending your child to an all-white school is foolish. Unless you want them to turn into a coon or become mentally brainwashed. And you even got the so-called educated ones who got the European education. They swear up and down that they're not brainwashed, right? Until you listen to them talk. They're so brainwashed that they don't believe it, right? You listen to them talk, they got nothing but European talking points. They got nothing but a European mindset. You know how many black women who sit up on this YouTube thing and they sound like educated white women? You know how many niggas, black dudes, who sit up here and sound like educated white men? Everybody talking about, well, what's sounding white? Well, sounding white is sounding white. Well, they say, well, does that mean that you're intelligent because you sound white? No, doesn't mean that you're intelligent. You sound white. You can be intelligent and don't sound white, but you have an accent. You sound like them. You have a certain behavior when you talk, just like them. You've adopted their style when you communicate. That's sounding white. You use their talking points. You use their slang. I've even seen some black dudes go so far as to act like frail white men, you know? They stay completely still when they talk. They wear tight ass suits. They cross their legs like girls. So there's a lot that we should be doing to take care of our youth. The education of our children is our responsibility. Youth centers, we have to be concerned with building youth centers. We have to be concerned with building recreation centers. We need to get these recreation centers back into the communities. And I'm talking about recreation centers and youth centers that are owned and controlled and completely governed by black people, not by white people, not by the state, not by the city, but by black people. We need to take control of the lives of our youth again and get them off the street and get them away from these demons and this rap music that's doing nothing but poisoning their minds and turning them into animals and completely confusing their gender. I don't understand anybody in their right mind. How could you think a child that's confused about his or her gender has a normal mind? How could you think that this okay? I don't understand that. But with that being said, Dane, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, y'all. We're gonna shut it down. I'll probably come back in about another couple of hours and talk about something else. But we're gonna get on out of here. I didn't plan on being that long because Dame can't stay very long. You getting ready to go, right, Dame?
Yep, yep.
All right. All right, y'all. Peace, power, unity. We'll holler at y'all later on this, all right? All right, Dan, get us out of here.
Okay.